Hello everybody, welcome to People's Unlimited Now. People Unlimited Now. I'm gonna make a little video sorry about the angle. I'm driving, so it's a little funky. Well, at least you can hear me. I'm gonna make a video about marijuana, weed. So, and sort of my view on it. That's not what I want my experience with it. That's what I want to share. So, I don't want to seem righteous because I smoked weed yesterday, actually. So I don't want to come across as righteous or better than anybody, because I still have a little bit of a battle with it. But I do want to say, I'll explain a little bit. So when I was young, I grew up Christian, and they're very heavily against not only just drugs, but what they considered to be sin, or like the devil. So not just drugs, but alcohol, cigarettes, anything, movies, music, anything that was of the world. There's this view that, a Christian isn't of the world somehow, even though we're here, and we have this duty to not be part of the world and not be a sinner. And you have to separate yourself from everything in the world, basically, even though we're here. So, it's a pretty ridiculous view. But, so anyway, that actually ended up fueling a desire to do drugs, right? Because what happened was you're told it's so wrong. You're told it's, like I said, of the devil, and the devil is like the absolute most evil, worst thing on the planet. And so, when you're conditioned with the belief that these things are wrong, right? Wrong. That they're not a valid expression of God, right? I now know that everything is a valid expression of God. And so you can see how, if you're conditioned to believe something isn't a valid expression of God, you being God, deep down, know that that is a valid expression of God, and you need to prove that to yourself. Right? So anything that you're told, that's not a valid expression by a church or a school, that's not a valid expression of God. You're going to want to automatically disprove that when you come in contact with that thing, right? And it's not, you want to, deep down, it's not conscious. Deep down, you want to come to the understanding that everything is a valid expression of God. So, when I met people, the first time I was around weed, and of course, at first, it made me very uncomfortable. But as I was around people with weed, and I can see how this is a theme in my life. Something that I've been exploring, something that I chose to be physically focused and have not so much a battle with, because I don't like that, because it's not really, the weed doesn't have a charge, it doesn't have power over me in any way, it's all my choice, so it's a battle within yourself, which is everything. But being around it, I slowly realized that these people aren't of the devil, right? These people aren't evil, these people, and this drug isn't evil. And so you try it, and of course, the first time you try it, well, nothing happens normally the first time you smoke it, but the first time that you have an experience with it, it's this mind-blowing spiritual experience, right? And then the times after that, normally when you first start, it's very mind-opening, and you start to realize, wow, this is a valid expression of God. not only is it a valid expression of God, I feel closer to God on it than I ever have in my conditioned state. Now that's beautiful. And I do think that it can be very, very useful, and it was in my life, to get me to a place of, first of all, accepting something that previously was conditioned as wrong, and seeing it as a valid expression of the Creator, right? So I don't ever regret having smoked weed or having been on it for a long time. It's a valid expression of the lesson that I needed to learn. And so I ended up, so the first time you smoke it, it's fine. It gets you introduced into, okay, they were lying to me at the church, which is something that I needed to be introduced to. They were lying to me in the Christian community. My parents were not telling me the truth about things. Because you take the drug, you realize, oh my God, I've been lied to. This is not the devil, this is not evil. And so then that opened up psychedelics to me too. So I started taking a couple of psychedelics, around the same time. And wow, realizing that I was one with everything. And realizing something bigger than myself. And realizing something I already knew deep down, but it had been conditioned out of me. So it opened that back up. It was a gateway. And you say what you will about drugs in general, it can definitely, if you're conditioned and you're so lost in your conditioning, it can definitely break that away. Okay? But it then becomes, if you continue use, right, it becomes the opposite of that, and it does become sort of what they told you it was, right? Because it becomes something that becomes like anything else. Like, you get used to it, and then it's your conditioner. And so I'm not condemning anyone for smoking weed. Like I said, I'm now having more of a challenge with it, because most definitely it is addictive. Okay, they say it's not addictive, and it's not, because I don't think anything is addictive, because it's all up to you. It really is. If you want to quit something, you quit something, right? And that's that. And in some cases with harder drugs, maybe there's a withdrawal period, right? And there's definitely a withdrawal period with weed. But it's still your choice, and a substance has no power over you. That's sort of ridiculous. A substance doesn't have a charge over you. It doesn't have, it's neutral. Everybody's all on this weed, right? Weed's so good. It's all these fucking, it's so healthy for you and whatever. Initially, that was my view too. And I would smoke it, and then I started smoking it every day. And then I started to need it, right? I started to need it to do anything. And then I was high 24/7. And eventually, it wasn't even about the high. And it wasn't about a spiritual experience anymore. It was about the buzz the dopamine that you get from it. That first dopamine hit. It's only about and I've realized this now, it's about that hit. Right when you hit it, you get this rush of dopamine, a head rush, a buzz, and it lasts about 2 seconds, and then you have this high afterwards. I started to hate the high. The only thing that keeps pulling me back in is that 2 seconds of a buzz. So it's 2 seconds of a buzz, and then for about 3, 4, 5 days after you smoke it, I would say those are how long the effects really last. And if you're smoking it a lot, it can be weeks, and then there's a withdrawal period. I've realized from smoking it every day, it's really, really not good for you, for me at least, when you're using it like that. I guess that would be considered abuse. But I stopped using it every day, and now if I even use it at all, it just sucks me back down to sort of this addict state, and I do start to feel like an addict of a hard drug. And it does really destroy. Now, it doesn't have to destroy your life, but it takes my mental state and really flips it. And it's invasive. It's almost as if it's intelligent, right? So normally it wants to perpetuate its own usage, right? Because as something that maybe a plant has evolved to have this effect on a mammal so that it can, be used. So it needs to perpetuate its own usage, right? Or else it's going to die out. So it perpetuates it by giving you, the first time I smoke it, right? So if I haven't smoked it in a long time, I'll smoke it, and boom, a huge spiritual experience, right? It's like you're connected with everything. But then the drop-off rate is so extreme. And then the next time you smoke it, you're smoking it just to get to a normal place. The next time you smoke it, you hit it, and it's like a graph. It can be charted, right? There's a spike, a huge drop-off. The next time you smoke it, the spike's about half as big, but each time you drop lower, in my opinion. And it brings you lower and lower and lower and lower. And especially somebody, and you could say, and I would have argued before, that it's making me more stable. I'm very bipolar-ish, and it's making me more stable. But really what it's doing is like creating its own base level, but it's kind of lower than a normal sober level would be, except for that 2 seconds when you hit it, or the 10 minutes. After about 10 minutes, you start to get this fucking, like, lag almost. Like, everything lags. Everything's foggy. If you smoke it all day, everything's so foggy. And anyway, it's just started making me absolutely so depressed. Like I've never been depressed before. And this is, smoking it, if not every day, every other day for a year maybe or so. And then it becomes where you need it to do regular things, but it also makes it hard to do regular things. So it's like you want to go out to the movies with your girlfriend and you have a hard time enjoying it because you're not high. And so you need to be high. But then you get high and it brings up all this paranoia. And it's just this horrible, if you like weed, that's fine. I know people like weed, and obviously I still do it sometimes because I think that I like it, or I think that I need that buzz. But I can honestly say, even when I do smoke it, after I smoke it, I feel horrible. Because I've recognized its pattern, and I've recognized I don't know. I've just recognized this pattern. I've noticed that it does help you relax, right? But it's only because, like, let's say you work all day, you get home, you want to smoke a bowl, you smoke that bowl, you can just relax, right? But it's only because that's you allowing yourself to relax. You're allowing yourself to not focus on anything except, I'm high now, I don't have to focus on anything, right? I can just enjoy whatever I want because I'm high. And you can choose to do that anyway. It's a little bit more difficult, but it takes some conscious work, but it's definitely more worth it. But anyway, that drop-off period is so intense, and it can last for days. And so you hit it 10 minutes, you're high for, maybe the rest of the day almost. If you haven't smoked it in a while, you're foggy, I would say, for the rest of the day. Or high. But it's really about that initial 10 minutes. And then you either keep smoking to get back up, but each time you smoke, it's less and less of an intense buzz. So either you're chasing that high, which is the same with anything. Or if you're not going to smoke again, what it does is it just makes you're trying to get dopamine in any way. And so smoking it, you smoke it. And I've had a unique experience with this because I have stuff to do, but I've been at home. I don't have a job right now. So I've had a unique experience to be isolated with this chemical. And to see it really recognize its patterns. And it's ups and downs. And it's up and it's down. Immediately when you stop smoking it, what perpetuates, what makes me want to smoke it, is the clarity that you achieve from that first 10 minutes. So if I haven't smoked in a week and I smoke it, all of a sudden for 10 minutes, I have an intense clarity. I can view my life very clearly, not fogged by thoughts. I can see that everything's a vibration. But then the downfall after that, it brings you so much lower than your base already was. Like, your baseline is here when you're sober. The first time, it brings you so high up, right? And you're like, oh yeah. And then it brings you just a little bit lower than your baseline. And it's going to do that every time, and the peak is going to be less intense every time. And it's like a downward spiral, literally. For me. Once again, this is for me. This doesn't apply to everyone, I'm sure. But, so after that initial buzz from it, if you're not really doing what you want in your life, like, if you don't have things to do, it really makes you depressed because of this lack of dopamine. Because you were feeling so good and now you're not. And so to perpetuate that, you eat food or take a hot shower, and it's unsatisfiable at that point. So you come down off the weed high and you're like, okay, and you eat a bunch of food and take a shower, and then you feel so shitty. And it just gets worse. It gets so intensely bad. It just gets bad. And it got bad for me, and it got really bad for me. And so, yeah, I still have a battle with it because of that initial clarity. But this is just for anybody else who's going through this, and I think I've realized I've been depressed, and I've gone through these periods. I quit for a week, and then I hit it. And then I quit for a week, and then I hit it. And so you don't really know what your baseline is when you're doing that. You don't really know what being sober is like, And so you get really depressed, and it feels like it's your fault, right? It's like, oh, I'm really depressed. And in a way it is, because you're choosing all of that. But what I mean is you don't correlate that to the weed, really, right? not to blame the weed, because people cannot get depressed and do it, and some people that makes them really happy, right? But it definitely makes me really sad. And it's just like this, you smoke it to sort of escape reality, but all it does is make you really feel alone. Like, you smoke it, if you're smoking it by yourself without anybody else, it really makes you feel isolated, because what it does is put you closer to what you really are, which is only ever experiencing yourself, only ever experiencing your projections of the world, and it shows you that, which is valuable. And it is a valuable thing, a valuable substance, because it's a teacher. And it's, even if it's teaching us in a negative way, that's the best teacher sometimes. But yeah, I would just say, if you are super, super depressed and you're smoking weed, and you're just like, well, the world sucks, and the weed is the only thing that's making me feel better, it's honestly, like what I found, it's probably the weed actually that's making you super depressed. And if you're not ready for that, it's fine. Smoke weed and don't feel bad about it. Like, if you have to smoke weed and you feel like you need to, and without it you really feel lost, keep smoking it. Do what you gotta do. But I'm just saying, maybe stop smoking it. And actually, it might take a certain amount of smoking it to realize that you want to be sober. Like, I realized that actually being high, being in that high state and then that foggy state afterwards, I don't feel like I can communicate with people. I feel so separated. I feel like a victim. All the untrue things. But it really, I suppose it's showing you those beliefs in a way. It's bringing those beliefs up. But you can't really clear those beliefs from that foggy state of mind, because it's just, you feel so shitty. And you can the first time, right? And once in a while, and whatever. But truly, being sober and knowing the real workings of the world is so much better. Knowing that you're God, knowing that you create your reality, all of that is so much more worthwhile and so much more satisfying and so much more, honestly, even dopamine triggering, right? If you really commit to it. It's so much more real. It's the truth, right? And it will feel so much more amazing than weed ever could. Weed's like sort of like an excuse to not see the truth a little bit. But that's just my experience with it. Everybody's talking about how good it is for you, but it's really not. It's another drug, in my opinion, right? And there's nothing wrong with drugs, right? Like I said, and that's what got me into it initially, is because people told me it was so bad, and I did it, and I'm like, oh, it's not so bad. It's actually really enjoyable. And it is really enjoyable. But over time, long-term use, it gets very unenjoyable. And very exactly what they said it would be. But that's my own fault, right? That's for misusing it. I don't wanna be the person who's like scaring you off of something and telling you it's wrong, it's bad, because it's not. It's not wrong, it's not bad. It's not evil, it's not this horrible substance. It's not any of those things. And no substance should be viewed like that. But more along the lines of, if you're super depressed and you don't know why and you're smoking a lot of weed, it might be the weed. You know? And I've noticed that it's more about the craving of a buzz than it is about anything else. It's more about the craving of that first initial hit of dopamine. And I hate when people would say that to me, because I would use it very creatively. Every time I'd smoke, I'd go make music or I'd go make art. But I could only hold that up for so long. Eventually, it was just about getting the buzz, which is fine. Again, nothing wrong with it. If you're doing that, don't feel bad about it. That's a completely valid expression of infinity, right? There's nothing not valid about it. But and so that's like something you need to realize. And what I needed to realize from using it is that this is a valid substance, right? This is a valid expression of infinity. There's nothing wrong with this. But now that I realized that, maybe it is a valid expression, but maybe it's not one that I want to explore anymore, right? Like, everything's a valid expression. Everything that exists is allowed to exist. It is encompassed within infinity. And whether you label it wrong or right, it doesn't matter. It is here. It is valid. It is allowed. Precisely because it is here. If it wasn't here, then it wouldn't be allowed. You know, anything that can exist will exist, and from the perspective of infinity, everything is just as valid as anything else. But from the human perspective, it definitely, from the human perspective, it's more valid to do what you love. And normally, when you're smoking weed, it's probably because, maybe not because you're not doing what you love, but because you need a little bit of a distraction from that thing. And initially, the first time you hit it, it does help, right? I sit down to make music, I hit it, boom, all these ideas, right? But the drop off, man, that's what you gotta, it's about 10 minutes, and then it drops off, and then for hours, you're foggy, you feel like you can't do anything, you just are trying to get another buzz, and every time you smoke it, it brings you down, and that's what creates the horrible depression, and, you know, so this isn't supposed to be advice for anybody, but maybe for anybody trying to quit or like guessing, you know, that maybe this weed isn't so good for them. This is supposed to be inspirational, you know, and no judgment to anybody who's smoking it, right? Like, look right here. We got, you know, a bowl right there, which isn't mine. It's my mother's. And she smokes. And so having it there is very tempting to me, actually. And I would never buy it after realizing this stuff, but having it there is the biggest temptation. And that's okay, because I'm manifesting that to teach me something. But yeah, the thing is with that being sober is actually much more clear, much more flowy, much better. Once you can get past your thoughts and stuff, and once that gateway opens and you can see that everything's valid, and so initially it can be a very, very useful tool, but it just like anything else, if it becomes something that you need or something that you don't even want to do, but you're like, I don't even enjoy the high anymore, I just want the buzz, that initial buzz, and that's not a great place to be. So, you know, say what you will. That's just my thoughts on it. And I try to be as clear and I try to be as loving as I can be. So if you like weed, nothing wrong with it. You know, I've been there. And not to say that I'm better for not being there. It might be the thing that you really love. And that's fine. But for people who are struggling with it, this is for them. Once again. So thank you for watching. And tell me what you think. What your experience is with it. So yeah, thank you.